Rebel Force Radio presents
Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with desirable mutations. They call themselves the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch.
This is the Bad Batch Aftershow.
Well, I see Jeff Holland on our chat here, the live chat, already predicting a 2-hour plus show this week. For a 22-minute long episode, I clocked it at 20 minutes, not 22. See, you might have just jinxed yourself. Jinxed us, Jeff. How do you know we're going to find that much to talk about? You act like we can stretch this stuff. We do stretch it here on Rebel Force Radio. The Bad Batch After Show this week, looking at episode 12, almost to the end. Almost to the end. We are 80% through the final season of the Bad Batch as of the airing of this episode today. They've got 3 more. It's been a banger of a season. Some of my favorite post-Disney acquisition Star Wars storytelling so far, I got to say. So how does this episode stack up at only 20 minutes? Well, we'll find out, and we will discuss it together here, as I say, on the Bad Batch After Show from Rebel Force Radio. So glad to have you with us. We only have a couple more opportunities with this series to get together, so make sure that you're following us on all of our socials so you know when we go live, typically Wednesday nights, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for the after show, the live show. And if you're new to the program and introductions are in order, my name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. We're coming down to the end. It's ramping up toward the grand finale for the Bad Batch. And it's bittersweet when you think about it, really. I felt like I'm just getting to know these guys.
Getting to know you.
When did they first come on our radar? Like 2020, yeah, with Clone Wars Season 7. And now here we are. It's only 4 years later, and we're getting ready to bid farewell to the old Batchers. But I hope they give us a wild ride toward the end. It seems like they're still on a slow burn with the psychological stuff that's going on here, still keeping us in the dark while filling us in a little bit more, but really just spoon feeding us. I'm really ready for the you-know-what to hit the fan. And I think we're going to be getting that in the final 3 episodes. But this episode, Juggernaut, really does a lot to get us prepared for what I hope is going to be an explosive finish to this series. So looking forward to breaking it all down tonight. Looking forward to hearing our listeners' calls, and looking forward to talking to you, Jason, about all things Bad Batch.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Let's do the tail of the tape here. We only have a few more of these to do. We are talking about episode 12 here in season 3, directed by Stuart Lee, written by Ezra Nachman, whose name is not one that we familiarly or regularly say here. I think he has written other Bad Batch episodes, but it's been a while since that name has shown up. I meant to look him up. So if you guys can do that, you're our research wing here in the chat, and you let us know if Ezra, that name sounds familiar, but like I said, it's not one that we say routinely here. So written by Ezra Nachman, story editor, as always, Matt Miknovitz. This one I clocked in sans credits right at about 20 minutes. And the original air date, for those of you listening to this in the future, April 10th, 2024. Jim, there's not a lot you can do in 20 minutes, especially when half of the episode is a big action sequence, which is really what this was, the Juggernaut, that big tank that we saw, I think, in Mandalorian Season 2, one of the Bill Burr, that second Bill Burr episode. So very similar kind of vibe, only there weren't pirates. There was stormtroopers that were on top of the Juggernaut. Oh, I might be crossing the streams there. I might be misremembering, but I know there was a Juggernaut tank in that episode of. Did the pirates land on the back of that thing?
All right. Well, you're talking about a whole different series, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around the Juggernaut itself, and I think it's also called a turbo tank.
That's what Wrecker calls it.
Yeah. Right. And it's known as the Juggernaut for sure. I think it has a specific name, which I jotted down. The HAVW A6 Juggernaut.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
right on the tip of my tongue. Yes, the HAVC6.
I miss the days when you'd have ships that were kind of like, their names were sort of like tongue twisters, like Twin Pod Cloud Car. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
that had a real personality to it. You know,
right?
The HAVW A6 Juggernaut.
See,
Yeah,
if that was in the toy shelves right now, how many kids would be running saying, Mom, where's the HAVC 26? No, they'd say, where's the Juggernaut? You got to have a name like that. And
Yeah,
then
the
they would go and
Juggernaut.
pull the X-Men figure off the peg. This is Juggernaut, isn't it?
No, but apparently it was introduced in the prequels. It was used by the Clone Army. I think you get your best look at it in live action in the prequels during the battle sequence on Kashyyyk, where you see one rolling by.
It was Yoda's ride there on Kashyyyk. rolling.
Yeah, he gets. You think Yoda would roll around like in a VW Bug or something?
Right?
But
No, he
he's
goes
getting
the other way.
The biggest ride you can find. You know, just he likes how that kind of, you know, this is the yin and the yang of it all.
Hey,
But,
Jeff, thanks. Jeff just popped in here, just said Ezra Nachman, Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 7, and Season 3, Episode 4. If I'm
Yeah,
reading
he was
his-
also a staff writer on the TV show Manifest. For all of you Manifest fans out there, he was a staff writer on that.
Remember the Manifest after shows we hosted, Jim? They were something.
Oh my God! Especially when it got down to that season finale that one year,
Man.
when a fist fight almost broke out over the show Manifest. But I'm glad we both have kind of cooled down since then.
Yeah, we're much more mature. So this whole episode seems to be pretty much built around that action sequence and that tank, and we get some other things though. And I be honest, I would have liked the thing that has saved some of these episodes in season 3 from being filler is because they've given us enough character moments and relatable moments with these characters to where, yeah, maybe it didn't advance the plot a ton, but I walked away feeling like I understood these guys a little bit more than I did last week. I feel like they could have done that a little more with this episode, even in the 20 minutes. It seemed like a very, very much a just utility episode to get these guys in a big, fun action sequence. And that's okay, but if they're going to do that, I really would have liked to have had it, put with another episode instead of just this one. I think this one struggles a little bit on its own, but I got a lot of notes, so we can start to break down, some of the meat that we got. Ezra, please. Thinking of Ezra Nachman. Omega is really working on Emery Carr right at the beginning as she gets there to Tantiss and says a line that she used on old Crosshair once upon a time. You don't have to do this, she says to Emery. So there's Omega always looking to see the good potential in everybody, and she's there with Emery to remind her that, her fate is not it's not a fait accompli. She does have the power to be, master of her own destiny and not go through with some of these horrible things that it's almost like, even though Omega doesn't really know necessarily, she obviously has a real bad feeling about what's to come. Yeah, and this is kind of like it's really a sacrifice is what it is. Though she does think that the batch is coming. She does think that that's got to be in the back of her mind.
Sure.
Little does she know that that Crosshair missed the shot. But she starts working on Emery right away.
No, well, yeah, right away she starts working on her. And you're right. It's a line she used on Crosshair. And what happened with Crosshair? He finally came to and is fighting the good fight once again. Emery, I mean, it's just a matter of time before she turns against the Empire. Foreshadowing or not, we were sensing it back in Identity Crisis a few episodes ago. It's just a matter of time. But I do think Emery's going to play it. And Nala Say is foreshadowed it, saying, Nala Say said when they were having their meeting.
Last week about the power. And she said, I don't have the power to do that. And she says, don't you?
Yeah, right. You know, so I mean, we're really getting prepped for Emery to turn on the Empire. And I predict that she will play a key role in the destruction of Mount Tantiss, which I believe we'll see in the final episode.
A sacrificial role, possibly?
Yeah.
Or do you think that's a character that might live on for future stories?
I think the character shows a lot of potential.
I do too.
So I would hate to see it all come to an end for Mount Tantiss. But yeah, very possible. I give it a 50-50 shot.
Yeah. And so the chinks in the armor are showing with Emery. She has one line of dialogue, but it's the most we've ever heard her say. Now, giving the teddy bear, the little stuffed doll to the little kid last week, and then something she also did when Omega was in Tantiss before. But those were just those were gestures. She didn't really, say things that were of a compassionate nature necessarily. But she does say to Omega, for what it's worth, I'm glad you're safe. So definitely there's some care that's showing for Omega, and it's not just in deeds, it's in words this time.
Yeah. She feels bonded to Omega. Could it be because they're both clones and she said, you can consider me your sister when they first met each other?
Yeah.
Or does it go beyond that? I think it does. I think it goes beyond that. It's more than just being cut from the same cloth. Emery sees that the Empire is kidnapping children and conducting experiments on them, and even discounting the fact that they are actual individuals by calling them specimens. And that just does not sit well with Emery Carr. So I think it's building, and it's coming to the surface, and it will before the series wraps up.
Also, we see the Batch, I think, displaying one of, and it's subtle, but to me, I thought it was pretty big. It was pretty profound. I think it illustrates that if there was any doubt, the trust in Crosshair is back to 100%. Because what did you have in the last episode? You had Omega off with Crosshair. Crosshair was there to protect Omega. What happens? He lets Omega make the sacrifice, gives herself up to the Imperials. He comes back, and you hear this in the dialogue between Wrecker, Hunter, and Crosshair, where Wrecker says, I can't believe you let Omega turn herself in. The Empire would have been, and then Crosshair responds, the Empire would have destroyed this whole town. She stopped them. But there's no shade of distrust or any kind of reference to his past betrayal or anything like that. They move on right away. It's not like, you're the guy that turned heel, and then now Omega's gone. That's suspicious. It was just like, well, if it would have been me, I wouldn't have let her make that sacrifice. So it was more on that level than it was any kind of suspicion about Crosshair. So that told me that, okay, this guy is working at full trust level with the other two guys.
I would have liked to have had a moment though where Wrecker and Hunter sit down with Crosshair and they say, so what was going on through your mind? I mean, why did you turn your back on us? I was just following orders. Well, I mean, but we're the brothers, we're your brothers.
Yeah.
We're the Bad Batch, we need to stick together. And when we didn't always listen to orders, because I think the Bad Batch has a reputation of doing things in a very unorthodox way.
Yep.
To where they improvise, let's just say, as opposed to follow direct orders. And so I think that's kind of part of their core to begin with. They're outsiders, and the four of them always stuck together, before Echo. And And so, I would like to have a more human moment where you get into some of the psychology of Crosshair with his brothers directly interrogating him about it. Why did he do what he did?
There were a
What did
lot
he
of
experience?
opportunities. You know,
Yeah.
in previous episodes, there was the episode where Hunter and Crosshair, kind of had these heart-to-heart conversations, and it seemed to be all about Crosshair's guilt, more or less. But you're right, there was never a "why did you do it" conversation. Why did you leave?
Yeah.
And
There hasn't
yeah,
been that intervention moment.
right.
Um, and maybe, they're just being practical. They're being hunted. They're on the run. Now they have to save their kid. And so there isn't really time for that kind of conversation. Also, the way the story gets rolled out, it seems like a lot of the evolution of the characters gets presented from Omega's perspective. And with her out of the picture, it just doesn't seem like they're going to dive deep into those kind of things just between the Bad Batch themselves. Seems
Yeah.
like everything goes through Omega.
It does, very much so, to the point where, yeah, with this episode, without Omega's perspective there with the Batch, it pretty much is just business as usual in terms of breaking things, stunning troopers and all of that.
They weren't
So
stunning these troopers this week. No stun bolts at all applied.
they don't stun the regular TKs. They only stun the clones. So the conscripted troops, the Macquarie troopers that we see, they don't get stunned.
They're blaster fodder for the
Right.
old Bad Batch. But when it comes to a brother, stun him. Stun him.
What about when it comes to the shaky hand thing? The shaky hand did rear its head. I thought that maybe we were over it. It seemed like an episode or two went by. We didn't have any shades of this.
Mhm.
But here comes the shaky hand thing, and it's almost like a Pavlovian response.
Yeah.
Because they're talking about Tantiss, and Crosshair really lays a bomb on these guys and essentially admits that he never had any interest or intention to go back to Tantiss.
Yeah.
So for all of Omegas, we got to go back and save our brothers and all that. Crosshair was not going back. So it does seem as though the link is between the hand thing and Tantiss, because they already covered him killing that the commander. He already dealt with the grief of those clones that were buried on that other planet, and he was stacking the helmets. And you didn't see the shaky hand thing going on then. The shaky hand appears when they bring up Tantiss. So, like you were saying, Jim, at the top of the show, they haven't firmly told us what it is, but still some kind of clues.
Tantiss isn't a place I ever wanted to go back to.
Rubs hand. You can almost see it in the script.
Right.
But so what is it? What's the deal with the hand? Why is he so twitchy? And it has been largely forgotten about the last two episodes. But then again, here it rears its head once. I just wish there would be some explanation for it. I guess, I guess the simple thought would be, well, that's the hand they were always drawing blood out of. And so he feels that when he thinks about Tantiss, there's some sort of residual mental effect in that he feels that when he thinks about it. But would that make him a crappy shot all of a sudden? Would that affect his abilities like that? Is he thinking about it all the time? Every time he shoots, he's
thinking about Tantiss. Yeah, it does sort of fall apart a little bit there. So you can't take it super literally.
No.
But in this instance, I saw it too. I was never going back there while he's rubbing his hand.
Yeah.
Boy, I did not think that we were going to hear the name Admiral Rampart again. I thought he was done, out of there.
I was convinced that there would be a return to Rampart ever since he disappeared midway through last season 2. when he was the fall guy, essentially,
Right.
for the destruction of Camino, because it was Senator Ryu Chuchi who had evidence that was supplied by Omega and the Bad Batch to the Senate chambers. And they had video of Imperial Star Destroyers blowing up Topoka City. And the word was that Rampart was acting rogue. He was doing it to benefit his own agenda. And he took the fall. And Palpatine himself, levied the sentence on him. And we find out what it was, where he got taken to this place called Erebus, the Erebus labor camp.
Yeah.
And so he was there with, at the labor camp doing work with an Ugnaught.
Yeah. He grew a beard.
I was like, oh, is this Melch from Rebels? You remember Melch that he ran around with Hondo Onaka, his little. You don't remember Melch?
Yeah. Yes, I do. Yes.
Melch, named after writer Stephen Melching.
Right.
But Melch, yeah. And I was like, oh no, if we see Melch, does that mean Hondo is going to be in the Bad Batch? I couldn't see Hondo fitting into this story. No, I just couldn't, I'm glad I'm glad they've put Hondo on ice for a little while, at least for this series.
Make us miss him.
Yeah. Hondo, it seemed like for a few years he was showing up everywhere, and it was getting a little intense. But yeah, I was like, oh, there's an Ugnaught. I bet it's Melch. That means Hondo is somewhere on this labor camp. He's gonna show up.
I am an innocent man, and I could just say, as they're dragging him into the mines. So Rampart, he's grown the beard. He's a shell of his former self, but not really. I was really taken aback at how little he changed since he's been in prison. He's still an arrogant, just a total ass. He calls Crosshair by his CT name. Was it CT9903 or whatever? CT9904. So still sees clones as just numbers, assets. Still looking for a bigger, better deal. I mean, he's smart. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's going to definitely parlay their need into escape off of that prison. So he's going to go on the lam. I don't know what kind of life he thinks he's going to have, as a fugitive, but nonetheless. But his whole demeanor, the way he talked to people, it was like, this guy hasn't learned any lessons at all.
Right. It's amazing how well he maintains the stiff upper lip when he's working with an Ugnaught at the Erebus labor camp. He's still a snot and a snob.
Yeah. Right. He insults his language, the Ugnaughts language and stuff like that.
Really, come on. Hasn't the playing field been leveled just a little bit? Former Admiral Rampart. You're working with an Ugnaught and an Imperial labor camp. I mean, things really could be better for you, guy. And don't pretend that they really suck right now. So lose the dude. That's what I would be saying.
And we were talking last week about, it seems as though every episode we get a Tech name drop. Oh. They do not want us to forget who Tech was. And that leads to a lot of theories about Tech still alive, Tech is Clone X, all of that. This week, the name drop came from Fee, and there was a little bit of chemistry, a little bit of electricity between Fee and Tech there. True. She called him Brown Eyes. Oh, yeah. So that comes back. That's called back in this episode. But Jim, I don't know if you've actually come out and said what you believe about the fate of Crosshair versus what you hope is the case, but where do you stand on Tech, sorry, right? Yeah. Yep. Yes. Where do you stand on the Tech? Is he or isn't he still alive in Bad Batch Season 3 at this point?
Well, I'm hoping the references to him are just to remind us of who he was without having any other sort of ulterior motives, like prepping ourselves for his eventual return.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope he is dead and stays dead. No return attack. I don't want the CX2 trooper to be a clone of Tech. I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
I want him to be, he died a hero's death.
Yes.
Saving the Bad Batch so they could continue their mission. And I think to bring him back to life would diminish that moment. Now, I know this is Star Wars and I know this is animation and it's almost irresistible to these producers when it comes to resurrecting characters. But, at this point, you have the 3 guys, 4 if you count Echo, who is out there still, along with Rex, and along with a lot of other clone troopers. Is it really necessary to bring back yet another one who sacrificed himself in such a profound way? I say no. From a storytelling standpoint, no way. I don't want to see it. But I still think it's a 50-50 shot because of lame storytelling.
Yeah.
They just can't help themselves.
Right.
And I don't know why, unless they have some plans for future adventures of Tech and the Bad Batch. It's really unnecessary. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how they could have future adventures for Tech and the Bad Batch because they gave us 3 seasons of a story that has been at this point stretched so thin. The whole entire show might snap at some point if they keep going forward. There were tons of filler episodes along the way throughout the series. We'd be lying to ourselves if we didn't acknowledge that. It happened a lot in season 1. It happened quite a bit in season 2. And season 3 is much more tightly focused, but still you have episodes like this, which are basically a set piece thing with the Juggernaut.
Right.
And
For a big action sequence. It's there to set up this. Yeah.
It's like story and drama bookend big monster moments or big battle sequences or big action scenes. And that's what this series is all about. And I don't mind that. But it just seems like how much more can you stretch that with these clone trooper characters? I think they've done a great job with what they've given us. And I'm just thankful it's wrapping up here at season 3 because I don't think you can get any more out of this crew. And to bring Tech back makes no sense.
I totally agreed. I forgot that I did grab this picture here off the web that shows at the top here is the Juggernaut as it appeared in season 2 of The Mandalorian, and then beneath is the way it looked in this episode of The Bad Batch, and very, very, very much the same. I mean, that gap, as we always talk about it, between live action and animation in the Star Wars universe, particularly with vehicles and things like that, these inanimate objects, it's just so close. It's very close. So well done.
Great animation.
Great. Yes, fantastic. My only hang up with this was, again, I would have liked to have seen some more character moments for one, but I also would have preferred maybe something that was a little bit more original in terms of the big battle on the Juggernaut. It just seemed like we've kind of been there, done that, I guess. But it was still, as you say, I mean, there was definitely a lot of tension and suspense. I saw someone in the chat say they thought that Wrecker wasn't going to make the jump. I pretty much was convinced that Wrecker was going to make the jump. This didn't look like there was not any weight to this episode that made me think that anyone's life was really in danger in this one, which has not always been the case with this season. There have been lots of episodes, majority of them actually, where I felt that the stakes were so high that we could potentially lose one of the Batchers. But this was just not the one, and I can't really put my finger on it as to why. But maybe it was because it felt so familiar to me. But it wasn't really a nail biter. I'll put it that way.
Well, Wrecker has been kind of in the background during this entire season, so we haven't had any real proper setup for his character to go out. You know, he didn't have a farewell with his current crush like Tech did with Fee. You
Right.
remember Fee talked to him before they went off on that mission, and it was almost preparing you for the death of Tech. Wrecker's been largely in the background, and I think he would need some sort of big character moment prior to them killing him off to let us really, as an audience, sink our teeth into him as a character one last time before they strip him away from us.
Right.
You know, they give you that sweet moment with the character right before they off him.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
I
you're
mean,
right. You're right. You're right. Then they did exactly what they did with Tech or through Fee. And they kind of burned that candle through a couple of episodes, but it was real obvious when he left that last time and they sort of had their goodbye. So definitely some good foreshadowing there. And you're right. I think, you know, Wrecker is he's Curly from the Three Stooges. You know, he's kind of the lovable goofball. In terms of Omega, he's the big overprotecting brother character.
It's like the
versus
Friar
Hunter, who's sort of the dad. Yeah, right.
You know. I'll tell you what, the music during this chase sequence, as the turbo tank was riding the cannon walls and the Imperial gunships were chasing them down, the music was just right on, very John Williams. And I know the music in the Bad Batch doesn't often hit us in the face all the time. And, you know, some people we know have been telling us, oh, it's too sci-fi sounding of a soundtrack. The music is too sci-fi. But I thought this sequence was just, Kevin Kiner was presenting a very John Williams inspired action sequence soundtrack, all the way from the point where they're fighting against the cannon walls. They jump on Fee's ship, and then Fee's goes off planet. Even as the ship is flying away, it's John Williams vibes, heavy John Williams vibes.
Yeah. I was also thinking a lot about the train in the Solo film. So that was I was getting shades of that as well.
Little bit.
Yeah, but no, you're right about the music. I thought the music was extra. I've really enjoyed the Bad Batch. Whenever I notice the music, I like it very much. It does a good job of just creating atmosphere. I think that it rarely breaks model to the point where it takes me out of it, or I'm just listening to the music. Usually if someone makes a point, in this scene, there's an echo of this theme or something like that, I'll go back and check it out. But this one did catch my ears in a very good way.
Yeah,
there
very
was something. I was Return of the Jedi. I was feeling like Sarlacc battle or something like that. A bit. Like there was a motif that just sent me back to that.
Well, the Sarlacc battle ends with an explosion. This ends with an explosion. Well, or the thing goes off the thing. There's an explosion there. And then they show the ship flying away, just like they do in Return of the Jedi when the Falcon and Luke's X-Wing leave Tatooine following the destruction of Jabba's sail barge. Yeah, it's the music adds to that. And I think that there were definite John Williams nods being made here by Kevin Kiner in the soundtrack.
Hey, by the way, for those of you watching live, just a reminder that this is a call-in show. So give us a call, 708-866-1737. Jim and I like to set the table of discussion, and then we rely on you to carry it forward, not just the things that we lay out, but also your own thoughts, your own theories, your own ideas. And it doesn't have to just be about this episode. We're 12 episodes. Jim is actually holding the phone number up. It's amazing. The strength.
I learned that from watching people on Instagram. Yeah. They pointed things up on the screen. I was like, why am I not doing that? Why am I cheating myself of that?
So, yeah, please give us a call at 708-866-1737. We've got one caller waiting, so the switchboard is open. We got our official call screener and program observer, Tyler Page, standing by. We'll check in with Tyler shortly. Boy, oh boy, are they lucky, these guys, the Bad Batch? Because guess what? There's always a computer terminal where they can find exactly what they need. I got a question. When someone leaves the Empire, why don't they change the passwords? Because they're always able to, hey, change the password. Crosshair's escaped. Well, you know he's going to come back and use the passwords. So there's a lot of technology vulnerability. It's almost like a commercial for, spyware and IT security. But they're always able to get in. They're always able to find what they need. In this case, they're looking for Rampart. Mm-hmm. So they're able to locate him in that prison.
You know, the Empire believes they're so arrogant. They don't believe that any, crew of a small militia or the Bad Batch or anybody is going to break into their stuff. And they sort of, those kind of protocols don't really exist. Remember TIE fighters, they don't have shields on them. The Empire doesn't care. They just don't care. Everything's expendable to the Empire. Right. Even a big labor camp on Erebus, they don't care. Big deal.
Well, you're absolutely right. We see this. I mean, this all leads to, whether it's through Andor, through things that we see throughout Rebels, Bad Batch. The Empire dies. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's all these little things. And what we're seeing happen on Andor is that they're so anxious for there to be this one big heist that gets the Empire's attention, which we saw that with the payroll robbery in season 1 of Andor. So by the time Andor comes along, they're really wanting to send big messages. But you go back to those early days of Rebels where it's just these little tiny scuffles on these planets. And so you're right. It's not until we have these huge moments that the Empire is anticipating this, because if they weren't anticipating this, they wouldn't be working on something like the Death Star. So they know that there's going to come a point where they have to show they have to demonstrate a show of force that's so massive that no one will would even dare. But they have to take a lot of little hits, getting that Death Star ready. And so that's what we're seeing in these original trilogy era shows.
And the Empire is able to put a spin on something like the Bad Batch blowing up a Juggernaut on that bridge and causing all this destruction at the Imperial labor camp. The Empire's able to spin all that because they've been trying to phase out clones. Per Palpatine. Palpatine, as a matter of fact, it ties into Rampart and the way he was the fall guy for the destruction of Kamino once it was, or I'm sorry, not Kamino. Yeah, Kamino. All these planet names and stuff. Kamino, the destruction of Topoka City there was discovered, and there was evidence proving the Empire was responsible on it. So they blame Rampart, say he was acting as a warlord and he was just trying to further his own agenda and all this. But Palpatine also puts in a twist. He puts in a twist. He says the fact that his clone troopers so willingly followed his twisted orders and did exactly as they were told proves that there's a crack in that foundation, and they should be phased out and replaced with recruits. The irony of it all is that Admiral Rampart was a guy who was truly pushing for recruits to begin with. And he was trying to pass a bill through the Senate to make it happen.
Yeah.
But
then he takes the fall.
He takes the fall, and Palpatine says the clones that listen to his orders were whacked, and that's why they all need to go. So let's bring in the recruits. The age of the stormtrooper is upon us. Palpatine said something like that.
Usher in a new era of justice, and The Imperial Stormtrooper. See, I already got a name. I can come up with those names I named Darth Vader within 10 seconds of him pledging himself to me. I had a name. And I even faked it. I even faked it for a second. I made him think like I was thinking of it, but I thought of it a long time ago.
The pause.
He's like, Darth, what should I say here? I don't know. Oh, Vader. No, I had that one in my back pocket for a long time. I just make it seem like I came up with it on the spot. I did the same thing with the stormtroopers in the Senate Rotunda. The place went nuts.
I love the pause. Darth Vader. It's almost like
let me take it.
Like he throws it up.
Let me dig deep. Let's get creative here. Let's woodshed this thing. Vader. There it is. Yeah, baby.
Fee's big maneuver there, where she cuts the engines when they're coming to Erebus to drop them behind the. Where have we seen that before? Where they cut the engines and they do a free fall? Did Mando do that with the starfighter?
Season 3, when he was fighting the pirates, I think he did a free fall at that.
Oh, okay,
moment.
All right.
And it's kind of like the way the Falcon approached Starkiller Base in The Force Awakens, where they jumped out of light speed after they were already in the atmosphere of the planet.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And then Han drove the Falcon. He flew the Falcon through a forest, took out a bunch of trees. You know, the loggers that showed up there the following Monday were like, oh my God, our work's all done for us. This is great.
Yeah.
Just load up the trucks. Thanks, Han Solo.
Yeah. So it has been done, and but it's done to great effect here, and Fee proving herself to be a very, very, I mean, thank God. I'll take 10 Fees over one Sid. I'll tell you that.
And
glad
you
to
know,
see Sid gone.
God bless Rhea Perlman, but you know, Rhea Perlman, you know, she was great on Cheers. ...
Let's
just leave it at that. No, she was great on Cheers. Period. Yeah, Sid got to be a little too much.
Little callback to A New Hope. Caught when they were talking about the walls being magnetically sealed. We figured it out and tried it. It's magnetically sealed.
No, so not the wall. The door.
The door was magnetically sealed. Wrecker, remember Plan 55? That was another little moment where it was like, yeah, he's fully back. Now, I mean, Crosshair's calling the plays. You know, he's calling the plans, the plays of the Bad Batch. So if there was ever any doubt leading up to this episode that he's fully ensconced in the bosom of brotherhood, he definitely is.
Great little moment of acting there from D. Baker, where
he said, let's do Plan 55. You remember Plan 55?
And Wrecker's like, all right, okay, let's go.
That 55.
He had to dig it out of the recesses of his mind. Plan 55 apparently is Crosshair goes in first, shoots a ricochet shot that takes out a majority of the opposition. Then he and Wrecker shoot the remaining, which is usually only 2, I guess. Because it only took 2 shots to clear the room, 3 shots to clear the room. So that's Plan 55 for you guys keeping score at home.
55.
Great number. I can't drive it, but it's a good plan.
And of course, the bargain between the Batch and Rampart. You got to get me out of here. You got to make me a free man, and I'll give you the information that you need. But it doesn't end there. No. Just like in the case of Fennec Shan, she was going to get the information that the Batch needed. Well, she doesn't really have it, but she knows someone who might. And at the end, we've got Rampart admitting to the Batch that, oh, yeah, Tantiss, right. Well, yeah, there's a problem with that. No one knows how to get there. Despite the fact that we just saw at the beginning of the episode a ship flying in. Then I started to wonder, well, have we ever seen a shot of the pilot? Perhaps they come in on some sort of cruise control or mechanical control, and that would alleviate or remove the need for them to consciously know where it is. I don't know how they keep this a secret.
I mean, well, obviously CX2 knows. He's the one who was piloting the ship. He was delivering Omega.
No one knows the coordinates to Tantiss, says Rampart.
No admirals know the coordinate. No guys like you, military guys like you know. But I mean, obviously,
Clone X knows. You're saying Clone X knows?
Yeah, well, he flew him there. I mean, he flew Omega there.
Well,
I guess it's a mystery now. Now that you're bringing it up,
maybe he has to switch to autopilot, and it'd be one way to keep it a secret. He has to leave the cockpit, leave the bridge, whatever, and then go sit there while they make their final approach. I don't know. I was just thinking.
Yeah,
how in
the
world
nobody knows. I mean, somebody.
What do you mean nobody?
Yeah,
deck officer. All right.
What are you talking about? Hey, did you know Rampart's name? His first name is Edmund.
I thought I had
Edmund
here.
Rampart. I don't think they ever say it on the show. He's just Rampart.
No, I had
Admiral
Vice
Rampart.
Admiral Rampart. Yeah, that's all I ever had on my cast of characters. Where did you get the Edmund? Where did that?
It was online. I don't. It's probably like a book or StarWars.com or somebody.
Oh, I can't wait for the book.
Disclose his name.
It's just going to be called Edmund.
Yeah, Edmund. Edmon. It's like
Edmund. Oh, Edmund.
Just Edmund.
Okay.
Yeah. Edmund. Yaman. Edmund. Yeah, get Edmund together. Edmond together with Mon. Maybe that's how you say his name.
Edmond.
See, I say Edmund like Edmonton, but maybe his name is Edmon.
Edmon. Like
Edmon and Mon.
Like Mon Mothma. Edmon.
Edmon and Mon. Yeah,
Star
that would
Wars
be
names.
an interesting couple. I was the best man in a wedding where my friend Pat married his bride Patty, and that was kind of a hoot. True.
Oh, Patty. Pat married. Wait a minute. Pat married
Pat
Patty.
married Patty.
Oh, so he didn't even have to
Patricia.
change the initials on his towels. She didn't.
Yeah,
That's great.
They could share everything if
Mhm.
it had, initials or
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Personalized.
That's
or
weird.
Whatever.
I remember when actor Patrick Page married actress Paige Davis, and if she would have changed, Patrick Page married Paige Davis, and if she would have taken his name, her name would have been Paige Page.
Oh wow!
So that wasn't going to work out. So
Page squared. Wow, I put that on my license plate. Page
squared. Well, if we want to get real technical, let's just look at the way the dialogue is written. Rampart says, no one knows the coordinates to Tantiss. It was designed that way. So something about the design of the base so maybe it's once they get to the system of Tantiss or to the planet, that at that point they have to somehow get on some sort of tractor beam or there's some sort of autopilot. But you would think that they wouldn't even want you to be able to find the planet, because once you find the planet, and by the way, the place doesn't really hide that well. I mean, it's when you look at the picture when you're approaching, here it is. You can see it on the approach. It's a big mountain with windows. There's like 2 layers of windows.
Yeah, that would raise suspicions. But you know what? There are other mountains in that area that also have windows.
Oh, are there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I've noticed that in the past.
Okay.
I didn't notice it in this episode specifically, but I've noticed that back on the horizon, you see there's the mountain ridge, and those mountains also have windows carved into them. That could all be part of the Tantiss base for all I know. Or it could be just part of the natural architecture of this planet.
Well, maybe it's just hidden in plain sight.
Ancient society or something did that.
like the Bat Cave. The Bat Cave is just kind of hidden in plain sight. It's just out in the, in the middle of nowhere, that exit when the Batmobile comes through the mountain.
Yeah.
And then in the 89 Batman movie, there's like this, it's like an optical illusion. Like you think you're going to drive through a mountain, but you don't, or to a hill. You actually go into the Bat Cave. So maybe it's something like that. I don't know, but I'm curious. My curiosity is piqued. I want to know how they're able to pull this off. So, Jim, this kind of is, once again, you got to get the mouse to eat the fly, then you need the cat to eat the mouse, then the dog to eat the cat, and then the lion to eat the dog. It's this, what are those Russian dolls that you keep taking out, and there's a smaller one inside. The Russian stacking dolls. That's what we kind of have here, and I'm hoping that this is the last one, right? They've got Rampart, and Rampart thinks that there's a way I might know how to get around the design that makes it impossible for anybody to know where it is. So we can only hope.
Yeah, right. There's not the clock is ticking on this series, so yeah,
For sure.
we hope there's no more Russian dolls.
Right. The last thing here, we get a little bit more information at the end where what's his name? The bad guy. Oh, I keep wanting to say Rampart, not Rampart. Hemlock. Thank you. Yeah. Hemlock is explaining to Omega what exactly is what makes her so important. And I think I understand it. He talks about the end count. The M count cannot be replicated, but attempts have been made. He says, we tried various methods, mixing samples from our other test subjects, yet nothing worked until we combined your sample, your blood sample, with one of our M count specimens. So Omega blood, force sensitive, high M count blood, mix them together. And unlike the other ones where the M count has degraded over time, according to Hemlock, that's what happens. The midichlorian count drops in the combined blood. Omega's blood mixed with the high M count blood maintains the high M count. So now my question is, can Palpatine's plan only work with clones of Omega? Or can they just clone her blood? And if you cloned Omega, would the clone's blood still carry the same traits that make it work with the high M count? I still have questions.
Well, I think it's like those old commercials for Reese's peanut butter cups. Two great tastes taste great together. Mm-hmm. Hey, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter. No, you got your peanut butter and my chocolate. That's what's happening here. It's not a case of the clone blood, according to what Rampart says. Every time they try to do it, the levels degraded. Mm-hmm. So it means there was still some noticeable M count level in the blood, but it wasn't enough to make probably the blood that what you would consider the blood being from a force user.
Yeah, it's not Palpatine worthy.
Right. It doesn't have the level that's needed to be able to manipulate and connect with the force until they get Omegas. And they keep saying replicated. Mm-hmm. So I think, they're cloning the blood and they're going to use it and inject subjects with it and see if the subjects then become force sensitive. I think that's the key here.
Yeah, because to me, it can't be about, I mean, I know Palpatine was going to inhabit Rey, but I can't fathom that he's going to be satisfied with the body of a 14 or 15-year-old girl that he's going to hop into.
Speak for yourself.
I'm just saying.
I would stay home for probably 5 years. You wouldn't even see me. It's like, oh, this does that, And before I even use the Force, I would be amusing myself. Wait, that didn't sound right.
No, I don't think that came out the way you meant it.
Forget all about that Ray talk. I mean, see why people get so irritated when you bring up Ray?
When you bring up Ray. So I just think that what the end game has got to be is they want to have, I think he would want a strong physical specimen, like a Django clone or something, or he'd want his pick of somebody with all the strength attributes, and then be able to infuse the blood with the high M count. So that's, I can't imagine, but I don't know how desperate Palpatine is. I really don't know.
It's hard to say. And like, you know, when you consider things like the experimentation that was going on with Baby Yoda in The Mandalorian.
Right.
Were they running him through the same experiments that they're running Omega through? Or are they trying to inject Baby Yoda with blood, or take his blood and inject someone else with it? It gets confusing. And then you think of Snoke. All right, Snoke is a clone or some sort of artificial creation. And he gets infused with M count rich blood that has been replicated, but physically he looks like he's a bunch of mozzarella melting on a pizza pie. I mean, that's what he looks like. That's his complexion. So I think that's a physical rejection of M count replicated blood. But yet he's able to sustain it and still use the Force and still maintain his physical state.
Oh, maybe
yet he's like infirmed. He's
right.
Looks all,
but maybe that's the next, maybe that's the next stopgap that nature throws in to stop this, because we know this is unnatural. So they're not going to, he's not going to succeed. He doesn't succeed. So the first stopgap is that nature has made it such that you cannot replicate high M count blood. Okay, we're going to get around that. Now we're able to infuse high M count into replicatable blood. Oh, all right. Well, guess what? Now it's going to, all that force power is going to start to deteriorate and decay the body, because the cloned body isn't strong enough. So I think that there's going to be this progression of things that get in the way of Palpatine being able to do this.
They struggle with it until Palpatine, who is a clone in Rise of Skywalker, and he's all messed up at the beginning of the movie, but he gradually feeds off of Rey's Force skills, and his fingers grow back and he becomes more independent of the life support and all of that.
The crane.
And we see it happening. Yeah, the crane. The crane is the one thing I'd hold on to. I'd be like, yeah, I'm feeling great now, but I really did enjoy that crane. It made life so much easier for me on so many different levels. Just pick me up, move me over here, move me over there. It was great. But
it's the one thing I really wish they would have made as a toy, as like a deluxe figure. By the way, now the deluxe figures are it's a Django Fett with a couple extra blasters.
Yeah.
And some environmental pieces.
Yeah.
I remember when the deluxe figure was Vader on the medical table, the build the Vader from the charred Anakin. Where was the deluxe figure of Palpatine in the crane? That was one of the cooler design features of that film.
Yeah, and if I have to read one more article about how Hasbro's whatever quarter stock prices are in the toilet, it just makes me think about all the potential money they're leaving on the table by not satisfying fan desire, because there was recently a poll about taking, I can't remember who took the poll, but it was the top 100 action figures, vintage series action figures that fans desired the most from Hasbro. And that Palpatine, it was like a top 25 choice.
Was it really?
from fans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fans would love to have that
For
action.
a relatively unpopular movie. Relatively, I'm saying.
And
It has its fans out
I'm
there.
someone who comes from the camp that believes that access to the action figures improves fan connection with the
Ooh.
actual feature film.
You may have something there.
You know, I just
like
think
that
having the
theory.
physical thing is
Yeah.
something that goes all the way back to the original Star Wars in 77. Sure, we liked it when we came out of that movie theater. We were gaga nuts over it, but those action figures made us obsessed with Star Wars.
Yeah.
And it brought a connection to the feature film that may have probably not existed without their accessibility. So that's
So
just,
true. I'd never thought of that. That's a really interesting point. And of course, as the sequel films progressed, there was just fewer and fewer and fewer. Yeah.
right. You got to work it. You know, you can't just put the movie theater out, look at the weekend box office numbers and go, well, that's it. You know,
They never
the
stopped
original
with the
Star
prequels,
Wars,
right? They just kept going with the prequel merch.
the prequels too. The original trilogy generation knows this. The prequel trilogy generation knows this, that it was more than just going to see the movie. It was the years of merchandise and expanded universe stories and comic books and things like that, which that stuff does exist still to this day, as far as like novels and comics.
Yeah.
But it's just, it doesn't expand those stories
Right.
like they used to. And the action figures themselves did a mental number on you as a fan, where just by looking at it, all of these creative ideas come to your mind, and you relive the movie and you reevaluate every scene from the film just by looking at an action figure.
Well, I was thinking about that watching The Bad Batch. We've talked about the lack of Bad Batch action figures. And I also, here's another thing that I don't get, and then I'll get off the collecting talk. But this is something I don't get, because we talk about the animation and the style of the Clone Wars and Bad Batch and how incredible it is, and we love watching it. And what do they do when they do get around to making, like, we've gotten in the vintage line, we've got one action figure of the Bad Batch, we've got a Hunter figure, which is a great figure, but they take this, like, what if Hunter was in a live action movie? It's not the same looking Hunter it was in the animation, so they've shied away from giving the figures that stylized look that the content has. And that's another thing that annoys me. If I'm a kid and I love Bad Batch, I want to go into the toy store or in the Target or Walmart, and I want to see an action figure hanging on the pegs that looks like the characters that I'm watching every week. Not some designer's idea of, well, we got to make them all kind of work as if they're all in the same universe, so we're going to change the designs. I never got that. Those whole line of Clone Wars figures were some of the best figures, and they're some of the most sought after of the post-vintage era, those Clone Wars figures. So, I don't know. More love for the Bad Batch in the toy aisle, I say. Okay,
Yes.
Let's get to some super chats here. We got our pal Eric from Phoenix saying, Dukes of Hazarding, a Juggernaut tank, and a Rampart toss. What's not to like? Tons. Oh, Dukes of Hazarding, right. Yeah. Yeehaw! Because they're jumping and they're doing the whole thing. What's not to like? Tons of fun again this week. Can't stick around. Have fun. Eric, I got to say, I'm starting to take it serious, personally, man. You're never sticking around for these things. What do you got? Like a job? You got a wife? You got kids?
No, he has a Wednesday night commitment.
Is
No,
that
I
what it
know
is?
this
I
because
thought he was-
Eric from Phoenix is an RFR VIP at Patreon, patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio, and he has appeared on many RFR Q&As with me. So I've got to know him, and I do know he has
his
a
schedule
commitment on Wednesday nights. He's always there when we do the show on Thursday nights, but Wednesdays are just out of the pocket for him.
It's all suspicious, if you ask me. Salby Crumb says, Emery definitely with a crisis of conscience. Yes.
Yeah.
I think a personal sacrifice to help the kids is on the way.
Yeah.
Agree. We don't know if it's the ultimate sacrifice, but because I think they should leave her be. I would like to see her pop up because we're going to need, in the gap between Bad Batch and Rise of Skywalker, we're going to need some of these Kaminoan scientists to help fill in the gaps for us along the way. We're going to need some experts, so I hope that they leave Emery out there in the toy box. Also, is the Clone X or X-Clone done with? Yeah, we didn't see Clone X, but...
No, he did. We saw him present Omega
to
Hemlock at the very beginning of the episode. He pushed her from behind, too, which I thought was kind of a dick move. But
just a kid,
I mean, Omega is a force to be reckoned with as well. So he's probably kind of wise to keep her on a short leash. And there was no acknowledgement of Clone X. There was, and so I started thinking to myself the same thing. I'm like, well, I hope they're moving on from this cat because that'll put an end to all the he's a clone of tech talk.
Right.
That I see and sometimes even think myself. So, you know.
You people don't think you have an impact on us. You do. You get in our heads.
I'm always thinking. I'm thinking of any possibility. And believe me, I didn't need anybody to hold my hand to tell me, hey, that could be a clone of tech. I thought of it myself. But let's face it, it takes 10 years to grow a clone to adulthood. And that's if they are age advance. What do they say? The age, their age is sped up. It's
right. Accelerated aging.
Accelerated, yeah. And in the case of the Bad Batch, they are sort of like mutant clones. So it's not. I don't think it's even something that you can plan on how long it would take it to grow another tech. You know, you could be waiting around for a long time.
Yeah. With the mutations, they're mutated clones.
They're mutated.
John Lowe sends a super chat. Thanks, John. Always appreciate you being here.
John Lowe. Let me just say something about John Lowe. I know all the lists. You bring me an Eric from Phoenix. I know exactly why he's not here on Wednesday. John Lowe. I see the name. I know right away who it is. And he's a great guy. He's from Georgia, and he flew out one night when we were having an RFR Galloping Ghost night here in Chicago. He flew in, met us at the Ghost, hung out with us for the bar crawl afterwards, and then went right back to the airport and flew back to Georgia. Now that is a loyal RFR listener.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Chris Hansford. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Got nothing on Chris. Chris, send me your social security number. I need to vet you out.
We got Megan. What do we know about Megan? I know one thing. She says, love you guys. Been a while and miss your analysis. Do you think that that one clone hunter is Echo? That one clone hunter is Echo.
Yeah, she means Clone X. Just rewind the Echo.
Yeah, Echo. She's got to mean tech.
Clone hunter.
Megan, you got to mean. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. This just in. Not Echo, but tech. Okay, all right. And she paid $2 for the correction. I feel bad.
No,
but
there are moments in life. If I could throw down $2 to correct something I said 3 minutes ago, oh my God, I'd be broke. I'd be broke.
All right. Well, let's go to the phones. We've got a couple here, a couple folks waiting patiently. Let's start with this guy right here. Blake's Take. We got Blake. He's back this week.
It's time for Blake's Take.
Hey, buddy. What's happening?
Hey, chut, chut.
Chut, chut. Oh, there's all kinds of talk this week. We've got people really believing that Tech is Clone X. Tech lives. Where do you stand on that? And then we can get to your takes. But I'm just curious, where does Blake stand on the big issue of whether or not Tech is still alive?
I feel like it's a 50-50 chance. Like, it could be Tech, it could not be Tech. It's a bit too dark to be Tech, but at the same time, but don't they, like, wipe everyone's memory when they're a Clone X?
Oh, I think there is a mention of that where they, yes, and they come back from their training and conditioning, and they are not the same clone as they were before. That is mentioned in the dialogue in a previous episode.
Yeah, they say they're right. They're not
Yeah,
the
I remember
same.
that. I was also thinking at some point, my dad reminded me about it, to where the Clone X says that he calls Crosshair a brother.
What? Clone X does that?
I thought that
at
Clone
some point,
X
I think.
says you could have been a brother, or that you could have been one of us. That's how I remember it. I don't want to dispute your dad.
I don't really know.
Always believe your dad, but
Yeah,
I would have to. I'd have
dads
to
are
pull
always
the
right.
transcripts.
That's what I say around my house all the time. Dads are always right, and dads always get at least a couple of French fries. You know, even if you didn't order anything, there's a thing. No, in my house, they're called dad fries. So trust the dad
and
fries.
not the ones that are left in the bottom of the bag.
Oh no,
All
these
right.
are fresh right off the top.
Right off the top.
Yeah,
The ones at the
my
bottom of the
choice.
bag are for the dog.
But Blake's on to something here. Now, according to my notes from a previous episode, this is from the infiltration episode, where it's revealed that these shadow operatives, these clone X's, it's a secret operation that reprograms clones, erases their identities, and they undergo conditioning. They come out different. It was tried on Crosshair, but it didn't work.
It didn't take.
No, it didn't take, because he's already different to begin with. Yeah. So knowing that, I don't think it'd be effective on any Bad Batcher, including Tech.
Based on the evidence we have, that's what I would say as well. What else you got for us, Blake? What made you call? What's on your mind? What's the take this week?
So basically, earlier you guys were talking about how you're trying to figure out what he meant by no one knows where.
Yes. How do they keep this a secret?
Mount Tantiss is.
Yeah. How are they keeping it a secret from pilots?
I feel like it might be like to where it kind of like goes under the radar or something. It's gotta be like out on the outer rim somewhere, and it's gotta have like some sort of like thing where it can detect from like around the entire planet, to where if there's someone who's not Imperial, they like camouflage or something. That's gotta be what it is. Or maybe the planet just moves.
Oh, the planet moves. Yeah, it's like the rooms in the Harry Potter school where they just the staircases always change, always move around. Maybe it's something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It just keeps on just changing.
Yeah. Well, there's got to be an explanation, and I hope they pay this off, which I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will, but yeah, they've made a claim here. We've never seen something quite like this before in Star Wars, where we've seen planets that are off the star charts.
Yeah.
We've seen that, but we've not seen, this kind of shroud of mystery of no one knows where it is.
Or maybe it's on the planet Exegol, where it's hidden behind, it's hidden behind some sort of space anomaly that's really difficult to transverse through.
Yeah.
And it's maybe it's the same planet. Who knows?
Yeah, possibly.
What do you think about that, Blake?
Yeah, I was also. Yeah, it could be on Exegol. Like, it could have something to do with Exegol. Kind of how you have to get to Exegol with a wayfinder. They could have some sort of way to get to the planet. You have to have some sort of item to get there.
My thoughts exactly.
I feel like it'd be a way to keep it hidden.
Yeah. What else you got, Blake?
So also while I was looking at Mount Tantiss, it reminds me a lot, like it's really open, like how you guys were talking about earlier, where it's just giant like window looking things. It's big and open and bright where you can see it. But also at the same time, it kind of looks like it can just detach off the mountain. Kind of like it's built to come off the mountain. They ever need to rotate away.
Like maybe it's some sort of craft.
Kind of like...
Maybe it changes location.
Yeah, kind of like it's kind of like the Colossus platform from Resistance, to where it just comes out of the water. It was just a little platform, and it just rises out and becomes a whole spaceship, kind of like a Star Destroyer.
That's a good thought. You know, I want to go back to my my proposal that it could be Exegol, where it can't be, because in the expanded universe, in the Timothy Zahn novels, The Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command, Tantiss was based on the planet Wayland, and that was established when Mount Tantiss was introduced in Bad Batch. They did specifically state that it's on the planet Wayland. So that throws my theory out the window, but the planet Wayland could be behind some sort of weird space anomaly that it's very difficult to travel through and hard to get to. So maybe it's surrounded by black holes,
I think
like the old Kessel Run used to be composed of. All
the
of
planet
these black
Wayland is surrounded by the planet Willie, Johnny, and Chris.
Right.
All those planets. Yeah, they call them the Highwaymen planets.
The Highwaymen, sure. Yeah. That's a planet I would go to. They have great summer festivals, and it's a lot of fun.
All right, Blake. Well, we know that bedtime is right around the corner for you, so we've got a few more episodes. Any big predictions as we get into the final stretch, the final 3?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this whole Omega, how she's back on Mount Tantiss and everything like that. I knew she was gonna come back, because they ain't just gonna let her escape and she's not gonna come back. They have more story to go on with about this whole cloning, and the M counts, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like she's gonna try to make her grand escape. Like she's gonna try to get out to the Bad Batch, like get a transmission out to them or something.
Yeah.
And that might be a way to get them. But she's not just gonna be her. She's gonna have help with the 3 other kids in there. The
Yes.
red one, the green one.
I'm glad you
the
brought.
other one.
Yes, Blake.
And
Thank
one
you for
tried to
bringing.
escape.
Thank you for bringing that up. Those 3 are. It's very interesting. Here's Omega being put together with those 3. And I think what they don't realize is that they just lit a match to the kindling of those 3 Force-sensitive younglings, because we know that Omega can rally those kids to a cause, give them hope, give them ideas for how to how to get out of there. I think that it's going to be Hemlock's. Yeah, go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, so they think that they're going to be going home at some point after this. But Omega, she's not just going to let them just sit there and she's not going to not tell them the truth about how they're not going home. She's going to say that you're not going to be going home, and we got to find a way out of here to escape, and we're all going to have to play a part in this to try to get this all set up. So probably the one who's had a really close attachment with Emery, she'll probably be a big part of this escape with Omega.
Yeah,
But
the little
kid
red
who
girl.
just got locked up. Yeah,
Eva.
And then the kid who just got locked up for trying to escape is going to be in on this.
Yeah. I don't know about
And
Blue Girl.
I
We don't
mean,
know
what
anything
was
about
the other
Blue
one?
Girl. We know about Jax and we know about Eva,
Yeah.
but Blue Girl playing Jenga over there, well, I don't know.
I feel like she might go in on this, but she seems like the one who would try to sabotage the thing. Like she
Ooh.
wants to wait for them to release her.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know.
Kind
the
of just
teacher's
snitch 'em
pet.
out.
Yeah.
The teacher's pet.
Yeah,
Blue
it's-
people. Those Pantorans. Can't trust them. All right, Blake. Hey, thanks very much. It's always great talking to you, buddy. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next week, okay?
Okay. See
All
ya.
right, buddy. See ya.
Take it easy, Blake. Yeah, I love that kid.
Oh, he's great. He
Yeah,
is great. What else we got here? We had some more super chats. Yeah, I think that Hemlock putting Omega in with those three, he doesn't realize it, but I think that's the dumbest move he could possibly make. I think he thinks he's being clever, but no. Because she's going to have them balancing apples, fruit on their heads. She's going to have them meditating. She has no force abilities, but she knows all the drills. She knows all the exercises. She learned from Massage Ventress and Gunji. Here's Drew Peterson. He says, does everyone know about the secret cavern? Fee dramatically rises from the floor. I didn't have a problem with that. I think Fee's been there. Fee's a pirate. She's what did she say? She's an extractor of something objects or whatever. I mean, she's definitely someone who would know and have these little escape plans. And the fact that she has a secret cavern doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, I mean, she says the hidden cavern, which was, we've seen this cavern. It was used previously by Asajj, CX2, and now Fee. Yeah, hidden. Yeah, sure. Whatever you say, Fee. It's hidden. Yeah. Nobody knows about it.
Nick says, with all the bounty hunters featured in this season, do we think they're hinting at an animated bounty hunter spinoff? Maybe a certain Doros. I would love that, but you know what I think that we're more inclined to get is tales of the bounty hunters as opposed to a bounty hunter series. Yeah, those shorts.
Are they testing us with these shorts to see if anything sticks and they can actually find the substance to create full season, full episode seasons of these shows? What are they doing with these shorts? Because here's one for you guys playing after show bingo. I need more meat on the bone. All right. These shorts don't do it for me. I need full on. I mean, I've been conditioned this way by Lucasfilm, starting with the first season of the Clone Wars going back to 2008. I want full episodes. Even these Bad Batch episodes. This one came in at 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's like we're before it begins. I can't believe it. I don't ever recall having that feeling with episodes of the Clone Wars when it was in its prime. When the episode went in and
22 minutes.
And I do that every week when it cuts to black and rolls credits. I say, that's it? Why the reluctance to give us meatier episodes? The Acolyte is coming up, and we're hearing those episodes are half hour, 40 minutes. Meanwhile, other franchises are creating television episodes that are hour long.
Yeah.
Hello, Picard. I mean, why can't Lucasfilm do this? Are they stretching these concepts so thin just to create a series?
Well, Picard was happy to be an eight episode series. I think they were like 8 or 10 at the most. They don't have to do these, and that's what Mando was. But you're right, when you clock the hours, Picard was, I think, a good solid hour almost with each episode. Yeah,
we almost have earned that at this point. Now, of course, Lucasfilm is a company that has traditionally been steeped in feature film production. So maybe they don't get the idea of longer. I mean, they should actually, hearing myself try to be logical about this. That's my problem. I try to be logical about why Lucasfilm does the things they do. And you just can't bring logic into the equation, especially since George Lucas is retired.
Yeah. Megan O'Donnell says, okay, when this season is done, where do the Bad Batch go? How is it not explained in Rebels or anything else since? Well, it's not. That doesn't mean that they have to go anywhere, but there's no evidence to suggest in what we know comes after this timeline that they're around. So they could go either way. But you're right. They don't show up in Rebels. They don't show up in anything else. But yeah.
I thought for sure these guys would fall off the grid and retire on Pabu. But now Pabu has been exposed and attacked. I mean, the Bad Batch show up back there. They're not going to be welcomed with open arms. So where are they going to go?
Yeah, I don't know about that they wouldn't be welcomed. I didn't get the sense that they were being, somehow pushed out of Pabu. But
just their presence there could bring the heat
But
down.
that's if Omega is still a factor. As long as they're with Omega, they're going to have a target on their back. I don't think anyone would give to you-know-whats if they didn't have Omega.
Yeah.
So the question is, where does Omega go? Does she stay with the Batch or does she go join another fight? I tell you what, I don't think Crosshair, Wrecker, and Hunter have it in them. I wouldn't be surprised if Omega goes off and joins the Rebellion, or what's going to become the Rebellion, with Echo and Rex.
You can create a whole series out of that.
Right.
The Bad Batch Rebels. Super Hour. Longer episodes.
Super Hour. What happened to the old Super Hours? Here's Scott. He says, are the Batch the only ones who didn't know about the hidden cave parking? That could have come in handy. It was valid. Wait a minute. So let me get this straight. So when she pops up with the Batch, it's because she parked in that alcove, that cave alcove where they meet Asajj Ventress.
Yeah, just
that's
judging on
cave?
the dialogue, on the surface level dialogue, it sure seems like that's what she's referencing. She says the hidden cave. The worst kept secret on Pabu.
I guess it would be if that's the place. I thought she was talking about just an underground tunnel from some undisclosed location where she landed, but
maybe she was.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Scott. Let's see. Here's Chris. Chris says, I'm the one who sent you the Boba Fett Invicta watches. Oh, because Mac goes, I don't know anything about Chris. Yes, I still have. Well, here goes Mac. He's going to go get the watch. As a matter of fact, I still have mine. Mine's in the other room, but one of us has to sit here and host the show. There it is in the amazing, beautiful case. You talk about a presentation for a beautiful timepiece. That is it. The Invicta watches that Chris Hansford sent us.
So Chris, what a great guy. There's
now
a
that he's
watch
reminded us.
in this case. There's a watch, and Chris bought one for himself and was so impressed by the craftsmanship and the quality of the watch. I can't even open the case. It's so super sealed.
You got to use your thumbprint. It opens up. You got to use your thumbprint.
There's a little screw on the side, and I just unscrewed it, and it fell off. But I got to show you guys this watch. It's amazing, and it's stuck in the case, and I can't.
Right, well, Mac's doing that. Does he got it?
There were clips on the side.
Oh, okay. It's childproof. That's why.
Yeah, that's why I can't get into it. What a child. Look at this. Look at this watch that Chris gave us. Look at that thing.
It's a beauty.
Boba Fett watch. Yeah, give me full screen.
Yeah.
Look. I mean, it's gorgeous. And so he bought one for himself and was so impressed by it. He sent one to me in Swank.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I'm only showing this off to thank Chris. I really don't want to encourage other people to do this because, I mean, what a gesture it was.
Right. That's not what we're looking for here, but we want to.
Yeah, no, definitely not. There's some Star Wars podcasts that have P.O. boxes just so you send them crap. But we don't do that.
You have to hunt us
here,
down.
But also, we're not going to refuse beautiful gifts like this.
No. That would be rude. How could we do that? How do you think we ended up with Tyler? Someone sent us Tyler. We didn't just find him.
Yeah.
Well, a listener sent him in.
I think that was Chris as well.
Did Chris send us the watches and then Tyler?
Yeah. I mean, but he's a clone. He's not an original.
Well, right. There's a lot of podcasts that have a Tyler.
Thank you, Chris. This is I cherish this thing, and I'm going to put your name inside this case.
Yes. Do
So
that.
I never
Chris
ever make a
Hansford.
brain fart like that again.
Now,
But just goes to prove
know.
you. We know everyone who listens to the show. We know you and you. What was that show? Romper Room. where you
Yeah,
said, "Look
yeah,
at
yeah.
me." I see
Mac is
Bobby
going to be
and
in the
Cindy
mirror.
and Adam and Jeff and Fetamatic and Cat Yellow Ranger and Adam Duckworth and Megan O'Donnell and Jeff Holland and Tanya. I see y'all.
Oh, you remember
there's
when Miss
Tanya.
Molly? Yeah, Tanya says, cheers, Jason, J Mac, Tyler, and chat crew. Tanya's here every week.
She threw in a $5.01 in the super chat. 501.
I like that. I like 501. That's perfect.
That's good stuff.
All right. Oh, we got one more call. Let's take this. We got one last call. This is Danny from Vegas. He's been very, very patient and waiting. Danny, you are on with Rebel Force Radio. Hello, hello.
Hey, chut boys.
Chut.
So I had a little theory that I've basically been thinking about for a while, and what if it has to do with the replication of the blood, and this last episode, even though it was kind of, another one of those episodes, kind of gave us a clue, and they said some key words, especially when they were talking about replicating. What if instead of them replicating Palpatine, which we've all kind of figured out that seems damn near impossible, what if they're replicating in large number? What if they're, in the Dark Empire comics, they say some dark troopers or basically stormtroopers that were empowered by the Force that got really low Force sensitive training, and they were a little more elite than the average. They were the dark. They had the Force. What if that's what it is? What if they're trying to bring forth of a dark trooper, battalion?
Oh, maybe they could use some of these experiments that don't go quite as well. They don't raise to the level of Palpatine. They're not Palpatine worthy, but maybe they could be, a lesser than, but greater than. As a kid, I always thought that's what the Imperial Royal Guards were. As a kid, I always thought that they were force wielding of some sort, but maybe not on the Jedi or Dark Lord level. But that's interesting. Someone else in the chat brought up something about Gideon's troopers. Someone said, "Well, weren't Gideon's troopers force infused?" And I don't think that was the case. I don't remember that being a thing.
He was shooting for that. That's what Gideon was shooting for.
Yes.
But there was no indication that he was successful. He was using Baby Yoda to try to infuse the blood of his clones with Baby Yoda's blood.
But he was taking he was trying to infuse Mandalorian warriors with, it was with Jedi, with Force sensitives. That's what he was trying to do. But I don't remember them, there being anything that would indicate that he was successful or that they were showing any kind of Force powers. This stuff, we've said on the show before, you used to have 3 years, sometimes decades to live with these stories. And so you knew them inside and out, but there's been so much content. And let's face it, it hasn't all lined up beautifully. So it is challenging sometimes to recall these things because we're just sort of on to the next one, We did lose Danny. I want the record to show that I did not hang up on Danny. Danny's call dropped. So Danny, we appreciate it. It's a good thought. This idea of maybe some of these lesser experiments showing up as, some sort of troopers or, clone X's or whatever. Who knows? But lots of possibilities. No question about that. My, oh my, what a show. Thank you everybody so much for being here. It's been fantastic. But we got to wrap this one up. We got to wrap it up. The super chats, so generous. I mean, they're not watches, but they're super chats. There's only one Chris Hansford. Thanks again, Chris, for that. Appreciate it. All the super chats, all of the phone calls, and a huge thanks to this guy right here, Tyler Page. He is our call screener. I know a lot of you call. You call the show just so you can talk to Tyler. I know that's how it works. I know that's how it is. But Tyler, we love having you, buddy. Thank you very much. It was a short episode, but we managed to get a lot of conversation, a lot of topics Anything in particular that jumped out at you this week with this episode, Juggernaut? Isn't it funny that the Juggernaut episode was like the shortest episode so far? The episode really wasn't much of a juggernaut, but anything we missed?
I think you covered it, but there was one person in the chat earlier saying that there was a second Emery in that at like the 130 mark, which
Emery.
You see like a female figure. It looks like you only see it from behind, walking past Omega. But I guess it implies that there's, other scientists out there if they're testing all these clones. So what's their place going to be? Probably nothing. But maybe there is a second Emery.
I feel like we knew that. I feel like we knew this. That there were other Emerys, or that looked like Emery. I feel like that's
in season 2 there was another female scientist.
Yes.
Whose name escapes me right now. But there are definitely other female Imperial scientists working in the vault or on Mount Tantiss.
Yeah.
Was it Dr. Skaldar?
That sounds familiar, yeah.
Dr. Skaldar. A different voice actress, but yeah, it wasn't Now you got me really thinking. Yeah, it wasn't Keisha Castle Hughes. It was. I originally, this goes back to last season, and I wrote Emery Carr, Keisha Castle Hughes, Omega's sister.
Yeah. Right. Some other things that I liked about the episode, that cockpit scene, very quick with the LAAT. That was awesome. I thought that Juggernaut should have moved a little bit slower, maybe when it like kind of jumps over the other one. I would have liked to see it like monster truck smash it personally, because it's just like, it seems like a heavy vehicle,
right? Like Bigfoot, like the old monster trucks back in the 80s.
Yeah. But I mean that's really all I got for this one, boys.
All right.
That's it.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. Thanks, Tyler. All right. Wrapping things up, we got final thoughts from Jimmy Mack. Final thoughts.
Episode 12, season 3, Juggernaut. Like you said, Jason, it was the shortest episode of the season. They should have called it Juggernaut. Hello? No, just kidding. I mean, they packed a lot into the 20 minutes. I'm not complaining. I thought the animation and the music in every scene featuring the Imperial turbo tank was outstanding. It was just really, really great. You did that side-by-side live action and animation shot on the screen, and it really shows that it's getting almost seamless at this point. I noticed, going to the very end of the episode, when they march Omega into the vault. I like the scene leading up to it when they're standing at those laser doors and Omega facing the entrance to the vault, questions Hemlock. She says, "Where are you taking me?" And he just says, "The vault." And Omega just starts walking forward. She doesn't wait for Hemlock to escort her in there. She just walks right into it, showing no fear. I like that about Omega. I noticed that once they got in there, they see the 3 kids from Identity Crisis, but missing is that infant Tarlafar that they had recently acquired. Maybe it was nap time. I don't know, but the Tarlafar was not present.
He was on his little rug.
Tarlafar, not in this episode. My hopes for the season as it's wrapping up. Again, no return of Tech. We do not want to see Tech come back. If he does, I'll take it on a case-by-case basis at that point. But as of right now, I don't want to see Tech return. I want his sacrifice to mean something. I want the stakes to be absolute when it comes to this final sequence that we're ramping up towards here, which is inevitably going to be a raid on Mount Tantiss. And quite possibly the second Clone War, because I believe Rex and Echo will reunite with the Bad Batch to join them in this mission, the mission to overthrow Mount Tantiss and to save Omega. I don't think CX2, he's not a clone of Tech. I became more convinced of it in this episode with the lack of attention on CX2. I strongly believe Emery will play a key role in the destruction of Mount Tantiss and possibly sacrifice herself in the way. It's a 50-50 shot. A lot of things are very 50-50 when you think about the outlook of what's going to go down in the last 3 episodes of The Bad Batch. I hope the Force-sensitive kids get saved. I hope Vader appears when the you-know-what hits the fan. I think this show would really benefit from a surprise appearance by Darth Vader at the end. Look what it did for Rogue One. I hope Batcher goes to doggy daycare. I hope... Okay, Omega is now in the vault. And I hope it's not the Disney vault, because then we might have to wait decades before we see her next appearance. So I hope the vault is an Imperial vault and not the Disney vault. Only 3 episodes left. Are there any more Russian dolls to open? I hope not. Puff a pig, not in this episode.
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up. We'll see you next week. Don't forget, new episode of the weekly Rebel Force Radio will be dropping this weekend on Saturday, so make sure you check that out. We've got quite a few things to look at and catch up on, so make sure you download that. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure that you like and follow this YouTube channel, Rebel Force Radio. We always appreciate it. You can find us on our socials, on Instagram, on Facebook, on X. There's an official Rebel Force Radio listeners group that you can join on Facebook. You just answer a couple of questions to prove that you really are a Rebel Force Radio listener, and then bang, you're in the room and you're chatting. But Patreon is also a great way to express your support of Rebel Force Radio and get free, or not free because you're supporting us on Patreon, but you can get new content, fresh content. Jimmy Mack just hit a big milestone, 200 Q&As in the can.
Yeah, we celebrate episode 200 of Q&A with our special guest VIP, RFR show observer, Tyler Page. There he is.
There he is.
And already people are raving about the episode. So, check it out on Patreon. Only $1 and you're listening to the RFR Q&A. We make that available to as many patrons as absolutely possible, because it's your fellow Star Wars fans taking the spotlight, and so we want as many people to hear it as there can be. So join us on Patreon, rebelforceradio.com/Patreon. No, wait, that's wrong. It's patreon.com/rebelforceradio.
Yeah.
And,
or you can go to
jump on board
rebelforceradio.com
and join the party. Yeah,
you can find it there. Oh, we ran out of music. All right, well, let's do that.
I've run out of brain cells, so let's wrap the sucker up.
All right, we'll see you next week. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.